Welcome to Career and Leadership Real Talk, the no-nonsense guide for ambitious managers who want to have more impact and progress their career. I'm Pamela Langan, a job search coach and expert CV writer specialising in helping frustrated professionals land the jobs and pay rises they know they deserve.
And I'm Jackie Jagger, a leadership and mindset coach specialising in helping newly promoted and new to role leaders to avoid the dickhead trap and lead with confidence. Between us, we've helped hundreds of leaders and managers to find new roles, take ownership of their careers, and handle the challenges that job searches and leadership responsibility inevitably bring. And now we're joining forces to share with you what we know has worked for our clients. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode. For the first time in quite a while, we have got a guest expert with us today, which is Clare, who we will introduce in just a moment. And Clare's background and the work she does is absolutely fascinating. So Clare works with leaders in a capacity that I will let her explain in just a moment. But we felt that this was an episode that was really relevant for those of you leading in organisations where there is this constant drive for people to be really efficient, really productive, to adopt AI. There's so much pressure and so much change happening for leaders at the minute. And Clare's work is in the area of some of the skills that just really support leaders to be able to handle some of those demands. So Clare, a huge welcome. Tell our listeners who you are and what it is that you do.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here today. So my name's Clare Spiers. I'm the founder of Got Your Back Improv. So I've been in HR for over 25 years, specialising in talent management, particularly around that management and leadership development and exec coach. And I very much recognise an opportunity, particularly more so now, to bring applied improv into the workplace, because I spotted a gap in the learning and development space for engaging, meaningful, experiential development, particularly for leaders, creating that safe space to experiment, make mistakes, play, and really stretch themselves.
That's amazing. And so improv is probably something that people wouldn't normally think to connect with leadership development. So how did that come about?
Great question. Absolutely. And I can imagine people think, oh, that's a bit of a left field approach. So my background, what I missed out of my intro is that I went to theatre school in my early days. And then I came back to improv a good 5 years ago. And through doing that and my work in HR, I very much recognize that there is a space to really help leaders build their presence and that ability to build connection with their teams and with each other, particularly as the world becomes more process driven from a technical perspective. Their ability to really show up and be able to deliver the why and the how of leadership and the how of their roles is really where they'll begin to shine. And so by doing improv and how incredibly powerful that is, and giving people that opportunity to really give it a go, and it's so much fun, is where the gold is.
Yeah, do you know what? It just sounds so interesting. And when Jackie said you were coming on the podcast, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to know more about this because I love anything like this. But I think when a lot of people hear improv, usually they'll think stand-up comedy. And I did think that myself just for a second. I was like, is that what it is? And I was like, or is it more acting or what is it? So what is it that you actually do when you're working with corporate leaders?
Mm-hmm. So in an improv workshop, it's a series of interactive games designed to build a particular competence. So it may be a case of presence or critical thinking or to build trust. And so there are short games where we create the framework, but then we allow people to play within that framework. So it's interactive, it's physical, so there's movement in there. And then there's a lot of discussion and generally quite a lot of laughter as well. So it's not stand-up comedy. In fact, don't have to try to be funny. The best improv is where you just step into it and willing to lean in to give it a go and be yourself. And actually, that's where the fun happens. Because one of the core principles of improv, and when you're doing these activities, is loud, proud, and wrong. So it's that safe space to make mistakes, to step into the moment and let down some of that. It removes the hierarchy, changes, flattens the status to allow people to see the real people they're working with
Yeah.
and really appreciate how each other thinks. So there's some real fun in there.
I love that. And how do people generally respond to that initially? Because I can just see all of
Yeah.
these leaders piling into the room and going, oh,
Oh,
this is what we're going to do today.
yeah.
So, what kinds of reactions do you usually get?
So it really is about that positioning at the beginning and asking people to be open-minded and to give it a go. We would never force somebody to do it. If they really didn't want to get involved, they always self-elect. But you will always find that the one person that was grumbling at the beginning, going, "Oh, no, not sure this is for me," is the one person that has a really great time, that really throws themselves into it. I understand the trepidation because it sounds scary, but we do it in such a way that you're improvising before you even know you are.
Wow.
Yeah, and we're off, and then you go, okay, now we can start to move into some of the more stretching activities where you are beginning to think on your feet and actually want to throw yourself into it because oh, this feels good. This going outside my comfort zone in this space is absolutely fine.
Do you know what? I absolutely love that. And I feel like, in terms of leadership development and training, it can
Mm,
be really stiff, but
mhm.
I think people underestimate the power of being able to think on your feet and to be able to react or respond in situations. So I feel like that is a brilliant way of doing it in a fun way, but
Yeah,
also allowing people to stretch themselves in that situation. And like you say, where people are a little bit reluctant to join in and then they end up being the star of the show. That's
yeah,
like really interesting as well, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And it's really great to see people that often, or they walk into it going, I don't really know what to expect, which is fine too. And what we do is we take them on that journey. So at the end, they reflect, and we do a lot of reflection through the workshops and say, what did we work on there? And what do you recognize from that? What can you take back into the workplace? But when they reflect and say, actually, it's not as scary, or I can do this if I don't overthink it, because there is a lot in improv that is about follow your feet. Don't worry about it. Do it. If you make a mistake, we've got your back, which is why we call it Got Your Back Improv, because that's what it's all about, is actually we're there to help and support each other and really building that culture and environment where you're all on the same page and recognizing we all make mistakes from time to time, and that's okay too.
And as I hear you describe that process, I
Mm,
think probably there's a couple of things that strike me about it. And I'm reflecting on the client base that I typically work with, who are
yeah,
in those leadership roles and doing battle with all of the challenges that come with
yeah,
those responsibilities. And I think the thing that really strikes me about it is so often I will have conversations with leaders about vulnerability and
mhm,
how that has to be in tandem
yeah,
with being true to themselves.
yeah,
And I guess what really strikes me about what you do is that kind of pushes people to, in a safe way, explore
mhm,
being vulnerable, finding what's true to themselves, and finding, like you say, those ways to think on their feet. We talked a little bit about some of the skills, and I just want to really
mm,
delve into the specific skills that this can develop in people.
yeah.
And you talked about presence, which is a really big topic and one that we've done another episode on. What would you say are the real kind of core skills that leaders in today's world really need to focus on honing and developing for themselves, whether they do that through improv or however? What are those real core skills that you see are really in demand in today's workplace?
Absolutely. As we find the world is really moving towards AI, you can't have a conversation in the work context these days without talking about it. And it's moving at pace. And the focus on capabilities has been around coding, data, and data skills. But as AI moves more and towards that, these human capabilities are just going to escalate, and a need for them is going to escalate. And particularly people in the workplace are going to want that from their leaders. So the World Economic Forum lists the skills for the future of work as things like critical thinking, creativity, emotional intelligence, adaptability, which are core leadership skills. And, when we talk about historically, they were talked about soft skills more and more now. We're beginning to talk about them as power skills, because they will be the skills of the future that we as humans bring to the world of work. And fortunately, they are a number of skills that improv can help you with too, funnily enough. Hence why I do this.
And as you list those, I guess what
Yeah,
strikes me is that data and
yeah,
analytics, and those are skills that are that they're teachable in
yeah,
a slightly different way,
yeah.
whereas those kind of soft skills or power skills, they're things that I think are really, you have to practice those skills to develop them.
Mm,
You can't read a book or go on a course and expect that you're going to come out the other end more adaptable or more able to think on your feet or what have you.
absolutely. Yeah,
So what what does a workshop with you look and feel like? So you started to give us a bit of a teaser previously.
yeah,
Talk us through, if, for example, a client came to you and said, we want our leaders to develop their critical thinking,
yeah,
how does that work in practice to give people those opportunities
yeah.
to apply that and build that skill?
Brilliant. Absolutely. So the way we design our workshops is a whole series of activities around that topic. So if you came to me and said, we want to develop critical thinking, we would then say, okay, let's pull different activities together that really encourage participants to be able to view things from different perspectives and to be able to arrive and look at things from a different viewpoint, because that's ultimately what critical thinking is. It's that ability to get under the skin of something without just having one train of thought. So what we would do is design the workshop with, and through a series of games and activities and reflections, because that's a key part of applied improv, so that then at the end of the workshop they'll be able to reflect on how they've applied critical thinking through those activities, through those experiences, because that's what improv is. It's experiential learning, which we all know is super effective.
Yeah, and I love that as well, because I think critical thinking is one of those skills that people know they need to develop. People
Mhm.
know they need to do that. But
Yeah,
how? Because there's very little training on
yeah,
how to improve those skills. So I
yeah.
think this just sounds ideal in terms of putting people in those situations and then
Mhm.
reflecting on it afterwards. So in terms of the results you get after those sessions, do you find that people have a better understanding or feel more confident with critical thinking?
It's a real confidence builder. So people, you can see the energy people have after a workshop, because what we do is demystify what is often complex. So critical thinking in itself can feel quite a big word, and like you say, it isn't obvious that as to what it might be that you need to develop. But when you put people into situations, and to a degree you replicate them but with a different perspective each time, is then they go, actually it's not rocket science, I just need to keep developing it, I just need to keep trying it. And that's what a lot of it is, demystifying it for people.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And I think it's definitely something that people should consider as a way of developing those
Mm,
skills, because Otherwise, you just go through your leadership career and you know that you need to do it and you need to think more about it. But you never really know how much you are
Mhm.
developing yourself in that area because, like you say, previously it was known as like a soft skill, but actually it's a real core leadership skill now, isn't it?
Absolutely, it really is. And particularly when we think about AI is going to help us make decisions, leaders' role in all of this is going to be thinking through what's the human impact of decisions. Yeah. So AI will go, this is the obvious thing to do because that's what it will do. But as a leader, their skill and their value will be all about being able to go, how does this impact my people? And so they need to know their people, but they also need to think through those variables to help make a decision,
Yeah.
which is critical.
Yeah, and I like that as well because thinking about how AI is changing things, like
Mm,
sometimes AI is generating an output and it seems like the logical thing to do, but
yeah,
actually a lot of what AI does is take out that human element. So
yeah.
when we strip out the human element, there's a real risk then of people almost becoming robots, isn't that? Interacting differently and maybe not being able to develop their
Yeah.
skills because they're reliant on AI. And what does AI say? So, well, AI says this, and this sounds
Mhm.
better than something I'd come up with. So let's go with AI rather than thinking for themselves. So
Yeah.
the whole subject of AI is so interesting because we're in such the early stages of it.
Yeah.
But how do you feel like with AI, like the future of leadership and how things
Mhm.
are going to work in the workplace with AI? What's your view around that?
I think firstly, I find AI really exciting, what it can do and its capability. It is changing everything. We do need to be measured about some of its impact for the future, but I think what it will do in the workplace is also super exciting. When it comes to leadership, I think for leaders, it's really important for them to understand that the culture they set is actually absorbed through their behaviors. Yeah, and what they do. People, it's that leadership shadow piece, isn't it? The people look to them, what will they do? And what do they do to show us what good looks like? So AI is super exciting at removing that repetitive piece, but in terms of their storytelling, them sharing experiences, their ability to steady the room in a crisis, their ability to be able to help people understand the why and who everybody is, that's going to be the role of the leader in the future. It is now their role, but it's going to become even more so in the future. That was needing to double down on those human elements.
As I'm listening to that, can think of
Mm,
about 3 or 4 conversations I've had with coaches this week
yeah.
about exactly these
Mhm,
topics.
yeah.
And the thing that really occurs to me is that AI, particularly in terms of some of the large language models and what have
Yeah.
you, it's incredibly intellectually
Mhm,
intelligent.
yeah.
But if we go back to those World Economic Forum skills, emotional intelligence is
Yeah.
the bit that AI tools are lacking.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly the conversation I've been having of your role as a leader is to almost you've got to overcompensate for
Yeah.
the lack of emotional intelligence
Yeah.
from where that data is coming from, where that information is being sourced from, what's going on over here. You have to
Mhm,
bring that piece. And I think almost there's been perhaps less of a necessity for that to be the case.
yeah.
But emotional intelligence has always been such a factor. And that's where the whole theory came from, was this
Yeah.
research into how do some people that don't have the intellectual intelligence
Yeah.
go so far, whereas others who have huge amounts of it don't go so
Yeah.
far in their career. That was the background to the creation of the
Yeah.
theories around emotional intelligence. So
Yeah.
I'm really interested in how that plays into the work that you do and how these things feed in
Yeah.
when you're working with leaders over a period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great insight. So, it's a leader's role, particularly now as the world becomes increasingly digital, And their role from an emotional intelligence perspective is going to amplify, because they are going to need to be able to intervene and be able to recognize that human impact and the nuances on their teams of decisions that are made around them, of things that are happening in the workplace, and ensure we don't become over reliant on AI to do those things for us, because I think that is the risk, that we do hand it all over to AI, because it'd be easy to do that. But the great leaders will stand out where their ability is to say, actually, the human element is the most critical part of this decision, before we automatically just rely on that, which I think will be the risk in the future. When we talk about in an improv space, it's all human. Yeah, all of it is about making connections, building trust, appreciating how different people think, which is such a privilege in that environment, to appreciate the different ways that people perceive things. So your obvious is not everyone's obvious, which is something that we use in improv all the time to really encourage people to speak up, to share their perspective, because great leaders, are the ones that ensure their team feel seen, heard, and valued. And this environment develops those skills of a real appreciation of how people contribute and enjoy it. And there's no wrong answers, as I mentioned earlier. So you can't get it wrong in improv. And actually, sometimes the getting it wrong makes it really fun, even funnier. So that's part of the joy too. And we also one of our other principles as well is that everybody is a poet and a genius. So it's taking that capability and celebrating that everybody is hugely capable and has got so much to offer, and encouraging them to bring it to the table, which is the whole human element of leadership.
Yeah, I love that, because it isn't often that you're going to get the chance to really practice that and make mistakes in a safe environment and learn from others. And I suppose open up as well. And from
Yeah.
a team perspective, you're probably going to get to see a side of people that you wouldn't ordinarily see in the workplace. And I find that really fascinating, because you think people, and then I'm thinking some of the people that I've worked with over the years, that I'd like to see them in an improv workshop and see what comes out of that and how they respond and react to that. So it's interesting, isn't it? And I bet you see people like expand their thinking in so many different ways.
Absolutely. And what is truly rewarding is seeing the really shy people, the ones that don't say a lot, that just tend to keep back a bit. They've got a lot to say, but they've just never been given that safe space before. And actually to see them start to contribute and appreciate that their ideas are truly valued and recognised, all of a sudden the people around them are going, oh wow, this person's got this real kind of shine about them, and there's like this, they're very quick wit, or they've got this incredible imagination. So it really does become a leveler and brings people's different qualities. It celebrates everybody's different qualities and encourages people to bring them all to the table, which is just gorgeous.
And that's how leadership should be, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, again, a lot of conversations that I have with leaders around different types and involving people and considering different preferences and how you can get people to bring their own contribution, and how when you expect more of somebody, you will get more of somebody. And so it sounds like there's such value in, again, it's that experiential piece of seeing that play out.
Yeah.
I just want to come back to, because I love that point of seeing people thrive and shine.
Yeah.
But I would imagine there's probably a few specific types of people who would find this quite, certainly in the anticipation of these types of workshops, would probably find it quite daunting.
Yeah,
I imagine that your quieter, shyer types would be one. But
yeah,
also, I'm thinking of the people that I work with, that there's a lot of people who like to have that very put together professional image, who are very
yeah,
planned, who are very organized, who like to have things,
yeah.
be able to anticipate
Regimented.
things
Yeah,
and not have things go off piste.
yeah.
How do those types of characters tend to experience what you do?
We ask that people come with an open mind and enthusiasm. That's all we ask them to bring. So people that come with that very kind of guarded approach to the workshops, and like I say, we ease people in gently so they're doing it before they even realize they're improvising, is that once they are in the swing of it and just going, actually, this is okay. They're not asking me to do anything that is embarrassing myself, because that's not what this is about. This is not about putting people in a position where they feel humiliated. This is about putting people in a place where they shine. Yeah. But allowing them to shine in a real human way, in a real kind of authentic way. And it's still professional authenticity. This isn't tomfoolery. Yeah, this is about giving people the platform to say, okay, we're going to encourage you to relax in this space and have some fun and recognize how that plays to your strengths, rather than we are going to put you in a situation to purposefully make you feel uncomfortable. This is about, we want to stretch you, but we're doing it with you, not to make you feel embarrassed.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, where you're saying come with the open mind, because with something like this, to get the most of it, you do need to come with that open mind, don't you? And I can
Mhm.
imagine that people have got all kinds of different thoughts and fears around coming into something like that as well.
Mm.
And I suppose for our listeners, this might be the first time that they've heard of this style
Yeah.
of leadership development. So what is something that people could do with their team? So if they wanted to do like a bit of an improv style experiment and see how it might work with their teams, what could they do to get them started and give them a bit of a flavor?
Really simple. And it's important they frame it and say, this is, let's just have a bit of fun. But try having a conversation using questions only. So 2 people at a time, just ask each other questions only. And this is about, this would be really good for a session where you're wanting to be creative or brainstorming and get people involved. And the idea is just try it. It's really hard to begin with. Once you get into the flow of it, it's an awful lot of fun. But the idea is just to start easing yourself into trying things in a different way.
Yeah, I like that. So in terms of asking questions, so would the questions lead on from the questions asked, or is it just like whatever comes into your head?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could say, okay, this topic is about, you could make it workplace relative. So it could be about leadership. So you're going to start having a conversation using questions only around leadership and see how you get on with that until people run dry. The idea is that you do it with between 2 people until one of them makes a mistake, and then one of those people stays until another person comes in and they have a conversation until somebody makes a mistake. Because usually very quickly somebody makes a statement by accident, so it's no longer a question, and then another person comes in and they can continue. But you can keep changing the subject. If it starts to run out, you may even want to put it in a context. So you might say, okay, where are these 2 people? So it might be they're by the coffee machine or they're in a meeting. So you might want to actually put them in an environment that can help the questions flow a bit easier.
Yeah, that's interesting, putting them in a different environment as well
Yeah.
to help the questions flow. Yeah, so that'd be a great thing to get started. And I suppose you could do that at the start of a team meeting or anything really, and get
Yeah.
a little bit of energy
Yeah.
flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. It gets energy flowing. People laugh. it also allows for a bit of that vulnerability. I've tried, didn't get it. It's okay. Low risk. Yeah. And it builds that connection, just gets people enjoying the space and connecting with each other. So it's a nice, quick and easy one to warm a room up.
Yeah, I like that.
And if you were going to do that, how would
Mhm.
you suggest that people kind of position that? Because I can imagine if somebody's, oh, I like the sound of this and I like this idea of building the skill of getting people thinking on their feet,
Yeah.
how would you suggest people position that if they were going to take this away and give that a go?
I think it's being really honest with your team. I want to try something new. Yeah. This meeting is about coming up with new ideas or brainstorming and really positioning why you're using it. But I want to try something new, and this is called questions only. So we're going to start to use our brains in a different way, just try and get some of those creative juices going. So the way the game works is that two people start. So I will be asking for two volunteers to have a conversation. So you'll buy the coffee machine, but asking questions only. And then when one of you makes a mistake or gets it wrong, I'll make a funny noise. What if that person sits down and somebody new will get in? And we'll keep going. And the idea behind this is to just have a bit of fun, to connect with each other and just improvise, just see how we get on, just using our minds a little bit differently.
Love that framing. So, if people are listening to this and are recognizing the value of this type of work, where can they find out more about you and your work?
Absolutely. So they can find me on LinkedIn, Clare Spiers, and we have a Got Your Back improv page. So please connect. It'd be lovely to keep in touch on also our website, Got Your Back Improv.
Perfect. And we will
Yeah,
pop
just
those links
basically.
into the show notes so that you can follow the links directly and connect with Clare or find the page. So, as ever, it's been a brilliant episode, Clare. We've loved talking about it. And certainly, I would imagine Pam's the same. I feel like I'll be like, oh, I want to go and do one of your workshops. I'm sure that will be the case for our listeners as well. And I just think that element that we've talked about of that kind of real human connection and also that kind of vulnerability and developing that willingness to not be perfect all the time
Yeah.
are topics that I know we've talked about many times previously on the podcast. So I think hopefully there will be some great food for thought for our listeners from today's episode. As ever, if you are listening and you found this episode valuable, then please do share it with someone that it could help. And if there are topics that you would like us to cover in the future, then please do drop us a message and let us know. And as ever, thank you for listening. And we'll be back next time with another episode.